Hello there, MESBG enthusiast. I hope this video finds you well, and I look forward to spending a little bit of time today to talk to you about one of the first events that I have traveled to in almost a year and a half. Yeah, crazy. So the last time I traveled for an event out of the city area where I live was October of 2021. So it has been a hot minute to say the least. um, it 2022 was more of a hiatus year for me, as you guys know from being subscribers. There wasn't a lot of content that was directly involving MESBG. Well, there was, but there wasn't as much as, say, 2021, and even I think, yeah, 2021 was when I started. So there just wasn't as much. It wasn't. There were still videos that I put out, but I definitely branched into other areas, be it video games, be it um, my Jeep events, just stuff where 2022 I wasn't doing strictly MESBG. But I'm happy to say, welcome back. We are doing a journey vlog here. This is just going to be not even a vlog, just going to be a recap of how it went for me at the Cloudbursts 800 point event that was in Greenville, South Carolina. So Evan and David down there have their little group going pretty well, and so they put on this event, their first one of the year. I think they have plans to do another one later on in the year. But pretty awesome that it's January, and here we are. We can go ahead and get a game in, get an event in, and get some dice going. So it was a 3-round, 1-day event. Like I already said, it was 800 points. So I haven't been playing for a while, and I actually sold off a large majority of the armies that I had. I no longer have any elves. I no longer have any dwarves. I don't have a large number of the men armies that have been a few battle reports for the channel. So I'm kind of restricted, and I wasn't really sure what to take. I have been playing a lot of the Assault on Helm's Deep Legendary Legion, and it's not something that I really wanted to play for this event because I'm kind of, for lack of a better term, burnt out on it. I mean, I took first place at my event last year in October that I hosted / played in, and it was a teamed event. So there are 4 battle reports. Please go check those out. I'll leave some links in the description area as well as some links in the cards. And, I had just been playing it a good amount. I was like, you know what? I want something different. It's fun to go in there and just use a nice, easy army where you can smash things apart really well without having to go overly critical in terms of like how to use might for heroic strikes or combats and stuff like that, because the Assault on Helm's Deep army doesn't really care about those sorts of things. So I do plan to cover that Legendary Legion maybe a little bit in depth along with others in future videos. So if you're interested in something like that, leave a comment down below so I know to definitely put that near the top of the to-do list. But for this army, for this event, 800 points, I went ahead and took, I went back a little bit to 2019 when I was doing a Gondor, not Gondor, I'm sorry, Minas Tirith Fiefdoms Rohan triple all historic allies alliance. And unfortunately, with the new rules, before I used to take Durnhelm to just lead a few Royal Guard and some riders to have some mobility and maybe some fight for hitting power. But now with the minimum requirement needed to be a hero of fortitude, Durnhelm is unfortunately out for that individual role. On the upside, and potentially also as a downside, I sold my Fiefdoms army last year, so I no longer have Fiefdoms. So before I used to do Boromir, Imrahil, and Durnhelm. So no Imrahil means that I could go ahead and take the points that I had allocated for Imrahil and go ahead and take Théoden. So that's what I did is I took Théoden with a good amount of Royal Guard. I think I had 8. And then I actually went ahead and took Durnhelm as well, just because of the fact that she provides 3 attacks, where Théoden only provides 2. So that means being mounted, obviously, charging in, she can get 4. 3 points of might, 3 points of will, 4 points of fate between her and Mary. Resistance to magic, not a bad piece to throw into an army. And in my opinion, as a solo drop, she's also a good way to kind of force your opponent's hand when it comes to deployment. So, had Durnhelm, had Théoden. I think I had a total of like 11 Rohan. So then my Minas Tirith component was Aragorn, Elisar, and Huron the Tall. Both of them mounted naturally. I think Huron can only take a regular horse where Aragorn's on armored. So I had my thought process being with that is Aragorn's just a can opener. He can do a lot of great stuff. I'm always going to have a point of might every turn. So, late game, I'm moving when I want to, unless there's Master Battle, which we'll get to in a minute because there wasn't a situation that kind of screwed me. What else? So very good piece to have. Expensive at 800 points, but my army ended up being a low model count army for 800 points, especially having 4 heroes. But 4 heroes, all with 3 points of might, 2 of them with 2 attacks, 2 of them with 3 attacks, 2 heroes of legend, and then they had some specialties to them that definitely made my army great. So, Huron, the whole reason I went ahead and shoehorned him in. Yeah, he's kind of expensive to have at 800 points when you already have 3 other heroes. But it meant that Aragorn, who I opted to have Aragorn as my leader, but it also meant that Aragorn is my big killer. I want to get Aragorn in combat so I could be a little more conservative with the usage of Huron. Just have him fighting troops or maybe minor heroes that can't strike. Don't put him in a situation where, he's fighting. If I'm charging in against infantry, I'm fighting a 3v3. I want that where he's maybe fighting 2 max on the charge, Really don't want to put him in a position where he can get 1 turn killed. If, so even against 2 guys, I lose the fight because I roll crap. 2 wounds to Huron. He's only got 2 wounds in a fate. I botched the fate roll. I can't might it up because I've spent, you say I roll a 1. I've already spent 8 point of might. Well, I'm dead. Well, then I have to change the entire tactics and the way that I play with Aragorn. So, I will say Huron is great because if you let Aragorn die, then you can just go hide him somewhere and completely prevent those victory points. However, the weakness, and it only came out in 1 game, is if you take a wound, then you still give up wound victory points. And that is actually something we'll talk about later. But my thought process was that Aragorn is going to want to be in combat. I'm going to want to throw him out there. So there's a good possibility of him dying. So let's go ahead and take Huron. Plus, Huron is, if you keep him within 6 inches, gets a banner from being near Aragorn. And then it means that Théoden, I don't really have to worry about him being my leader with only 2 wounds and 1 fate, being a hero of legend also. So then for my Minas Tirith troop component, I just took warriors with shields, warriors with spear and shields, and rangers. Rangers so I could have some shooting, some 3-up shoot value, and some fight value 4. Now I didn't give any of the rangers spears because I had an even amount of spear and shield guys. So I wanted to keep those guys in shield wall and then just use the shooting rangers as like, okay, maybe I throw a ranger in front line and support with a spear, or I just have, rangers that can also tag onto a fight to give the fight 4. I will say that shooting wise, I think I had 7 shots total for my army. Didn't do anything. I may have gotten a single wound in shooting. I can't even remember, to be completely honest. And if I did, I think it was game 1. Yeah, I think I might have killed 1 warrior in game 1, and that was it. But this is not an army where I want to sit back and shoot. So I had 34 models total. Like I said, 4 heroes that, for the most part, can do very good in combat. My army wants to be in combat. It wants to fight. Yeah, the fight 3 kind of hurts, but my thought process again there is I have shield wall, so I'm defense 7, and Aragorn's a 6-inch banner for Warriors of Minas Tirith, so I can go ahead and just be hopefully throwing 3 dice a turn in combat. Even if it's a warrior just fighting on his own, I can shield and potentially have Aragorn nearby to throw 3 dice to win a fight. So fight 3 hordes are kind of what's kind of being a semi-meta right now here in the US. So my thought process being, all right, I'm doing the fight 3 horde, plus I've got some fight 4 guys, plus I've got Royal Guard who can be fight 5 on the charge near Théoden, which isn't hard to do because they're literally going to ride in Théoden's hip pocket the entire game. Yeah. So yeah, that's my army. Or sorry, I'm already like 10.5 minutes in, but a little bit of a recap from 2022 on top of that. So let's go ahead and just jump right into talking about how my games went. And I will say this, I know I'm way farther in than I meant to mention at this point, but none of these photos that I'm using are from this event. I am using photos from past events that I have run. I'm pretty sure I put that on one of the first photos. So my apologies, didn't have time to take photos. I traveled solo for this. No Dan, no Joe, no wifey taking photos for me. So yes, just to keep things interesting, that's what I have going on there. So, round 1, I played against a Dark Powers of Dol Guldur and Azog's Legion alliance. So, Azog was leading a bunch of Gundabad warriors with, shields, shield and spear, one with a banner. And then the Dark Powers of Dol Guldur was a captain with some more warriors, and they are green allies, so that works. And then he also had 5 castellans of Dol Guldur. I can't remember what are they called? 5 castellans of Dol Guldur. Yeah, they're castellans of Dol Guldur. So he had 5 of those as solo drops, and that's actually important because the first round was Maelstrom, and it was Command the Battlefield. So Command the Battlefield is a scenario I've never played before, but having seen Joe played it in an event the weekend before this one. So the date of this event was the 28th of January. But Joe said that it was actually a pretty good scenario because depending on who and what you played against, if you had cavalry in your army of any sort, you had a good chance of winning the game. So with the high amount of cav I had in my army, having 10 mounted models, 10 cavalry models from Rohan, and then 2 cavalry models from Minas Tirith. I had 12 cavalry models. Anyway, my opponent was Walter, who was new to the game, and Walter was probably one of the nicest guys I've ever met. Laid back, chill, but very smart. He's played tabletop gaming before. He just hasn't played a lot of MESBG, so the experience was definitely there. You could see it. You could see that he was tactically smart when it came to playing. He just needs to learn the little ins and outs and nuances of playing MESBG. But I say if he can play semi-regularly, which in my mind at this point, semi-regularly for me is like one weekend every 2 weeks. If he can do that, then I would say in like 6 months, watch out. Walter, you definitely can become a great player. And you're definitely a cool guy, which makes it even better to play against a guy who's good, but also laid back and chill at the same time. So yeah, we played Command the Battlefield. He deployed first. They were not playing the house. They were playing rules as written for Maelstrom deployment. There's a lot of house rules and at a lot of events where it's alternating to help prevent a one-sided affair and a disadvantaged when it comes to that. But this was not. This was just strictly rules as written, which is fine. And Walter deployed first, and he deployed really well. He got a lot of good rolls. I think Azog and his captain both came on, and I think like 1 or 2 of his castellans didn't. They rolled 1s. But he deployed pretty much all on one side of the board based off the rolls he had. Now, I will say we were playing on they called it the Bridge of Khazad-dûm board. So it was actually pretty nice. It had 5, the middle section was open, but they had 5 bridges crossing this middle section that it was too far to leap. So a foot model that moved 6 inches would not be able to leap across it. A cav model would be able to because it was less than 10. They had one larger bridge in the middle, which was supposed to be the Bridge of Khazad-dûm, and then four smaller ones spread evenly out. So I actually really like that. I've seen some Bridge of Khazad-dûm boards where there's literally like one bridge, and it's this one big bridge in this empty valley. It's like that really makes it hard to play like a lot of games, like, and especially some armies that have like really big pieces, like say a Belrock, since we're talking Moria, could just go sit in the middle of it and make it literally impossible for you to get across the board, and at that point almost maybe impossible to win depending on the scenario. So I do like that they did that. I thought it was really good. It was a well placed, well balanced board in terms of, terrain and those bridges. So, my hat's off to that. That's one of the hardest things as a TO, is trying to make a board that is not only fun to play on, but also provides some challenges to your opponent, but isn't so challenging that it's damn near impossible for certain armies to play on. But yes, definitely a kudos for that one. I would like to play on that one again. So, back to the game. Walter deployed. He had his army split. They were split on, we'll just say, on a one board edge, but on the two different halves. So he had the chasm in the middle. So then I rolled, and I want to say, well, one of my warbands didn't come on, and I want to say it was Aragorn's. So Huron came in, and I threw Huron over on the side where his captain was at, and then he got to pick for my Rohan contingent of Théoden, and he picked on the far side away from Azog. So I just did what cavalry does and just moved in 10 inches as far up as I could, because I knew I was going to have to get up there to challenge and potentially, depending on where Aragorn came in, reinforce and support Aragorn and his warband. And then Durnhelm, I think I ended up being either able to A, pick wherever, or B, pick the side that Théoden came on. So I did that. So basically my Rohan contingent was completely together. So we go into the next turn, and I bring Aragorn on. He brings Aragorn on right near Azog's warband. So I'm kind of trapped in a corner between this rock. Nice big rock formation, so I was kind of pinned in, and then I was fighting Azog on one side, and then he ended up having, I think, 3 Castellans on the other side. So Castellans are deadly little guys. Like, it's one of those models that you look at on paper and you're like, yeah, those are pretty good, but then you don't ever play against them, so you don't realize how good they can be. So they are fight 5 with 2 attacks, and then 1 wound, but 12 will, which they can spend as fate. Hardy at defense 5, hard to wound when you only fight 3 or strength 3, and then they are terror models, so having to do courage checks. Thankfully, my Rohan, not my Rohan. Well, we can talk about my Rohan. My Rohan army has all bodyguard for the most part, outside of Durnhelm and Théoden, so they didn't really care. And then warriors in Minas Tirith are not the highest courage value in the world at only 3, but the +1 due to the army modus of Minas Tirith is nice. So it gave me a 50-50 shot to get charges in with my warriors in Minas Tirith. But for the most part, I was actually just trying to build a wall to hold off his Gundabad warriors and keep Azog from coming in and eating me. Azog did pretty much what I expected, which was eat the entire warband almost of Aragorn. So Aragorn I sent away from Azog because I didn't want to get that matchup going on early game, until I had some reinforcements coming with Théoden, and I took Aragorn against a Castellan. Now I will say I did not do very well when it came to winning roll-offs in this scenario. So I was losing a lot of heroic movement, which I was freebeing, so it wasn't too bad. But I was losing the roll-offs for movement, and the Castellans were charging against Aragorn. Now, that being said, Aragorn was winning most of the fights against these Castellans. I think the very first one I lost and took a wound, but faded out of, which was good. But after that, I don't think I lost against the Castellan again with Aragorn. But the fact that they're, 1 wound with 12 fate, their will points being used as fate, it was, I could get a couple wounds a turn, against them, even eating fours. I was not rolling the hottest. When you're not charging, fours on three dice sounds great if you're only trying to get one, but when you're trying to get multiples of them, turn after turn after turn, it got a little hard there to get the wounds I needed. Conversely, my troops in Aragorn's warband were not doing a darn thing when it came to kills. I got lucky that I was able to get my Rohan contingent over so quickly because it split his warband and made him have to go and engage my Rohan to keep him from getting surrounded. And that when that happened, my Rohan charging in, being fight 5, being strength 4, were just eating Gundabad warriors left and right. And then I was actually able to take down 3 of the 5 Castellans in like a 2 or 3, I will say 3, about 3 turn span between Théoden, Aragorn, and Durnhelm getting in there. And I think like turn 1 when I finally charged, I did heroic combats with both Durnhelm and Théoden and threw them both into Castellans just to go ahead, force them to burn a will, because they have the same rule as a ring wraith. They have to burn a will point when they're in combat, and then to do some wounds and get them to go, whittle away their will count. So it did take a number of turns, and I think one of his Castellans was still alive at the end of the game, just because of the fact that they are hard to take down. If you're only sending one guy against it turn after turn, if you're lucky in getting a wound a turn, at best you're burning 3 fate point or 3 will points a turn. So you're looking at 4 turns minimum to kill him. We'll say 3. It's probably like 1 wound a turn if you're lucky. Takes 2 will points / fate points. And then 1 from being in combat. But let's be honest, if it's one-on-one, it's probably most likely you're going to die because they are fight 5. So that is going on there. But long story short, Aragorn and Azog never fought. I was able to basically destroy his entire warband, except for Azog, on that side of the board, and then ran a few Royal Guard over onto the opposite side of that board half to secure that board edge. The other side of the board where Huron is at with his small contingent, I think he had 6 guys with him. He had a small warband. Remember, my whole purpose was to deploy my Minas Tirith contingent together so Huron could be within 6 of Aragorn, but not in the front line fighting with Aragorn. So when he got deployed on the opposite board half over by where that captain of Dol Guldur was at, it kind of screwed my plan. That being said, that warband fought valiantly. They fought that captain's warband to a standstill. No trooper survived, but I think I was able to take out 3 or 4 of his guys that were over there, which was perfect because that was enough for me to be able to break him. And then Huron, I literally ran away. I burnt all his might to keep him from losing combats and then get a couple kills. Botched a heroic combat with him that I was trying to just, go and kill 2 or 3 guys to whittle away that warband. So he didn't really do a whole lot, but he did run away, which was critical. And then I was able to run him away onto a board quarter away from the warriors. And I was able to use him and the rest of the troops to hold up the captain's warband long enough to prevent him from getting to that board quarter. So I did fully control that board quarter. He also fully controlled the board quarter across from me, though. So that gave him points. And then, end of the game, I controlled 2 board quarters completely. I had more than him in the 1 board quarter. So that gave me another point. And then we were both broken, I believe, at that point. And neither of us had wounded either leader. So I had 6 points to his 3, which we were doing scoring. They did scoring similar to how I like to do scoring, not like the match play guide is, which they were doing 4, 3, 2, 1, 0 for victory points, tournament points. 4 tournament points for a major, 3 tournament points for a minor win, 2 tournament points for ties, 1 tournament point for a minor loss, and 0 tournament points for a major loss. So, and then the way to decide major and minor was if you won by 1 to 4 victory points, it was a minor, and 5 victory points or better was a major. So my 6-3 score netted me a minor victory, so I had 3 tournament points to start out the day. Not bad. I was impressed by what I was able to do. Early game, I was a little disheartened because my Warriors dropped like flies and rolled really terribly. But when I was able to roll that Rohan contingent in there to back up Aragorn, basically that was the turning point of the game for me. I definitely think my man of the match, even though he didn't do a lot, I would probably give it a tie between Huron and... honestly, I have to say Huron. Because of the fact that I was able to keep him alive, even though I botched a couple of rolls with him, he was able to grab a board quarter over on the opposite side. So, I really want to give it to his entire warband. And in particular, there was one warrior ministerial that just stood up for 3 turns, outnumbered 6-1, and just kept rolling that clutch 6 to stay in there and not die. And second to that was a ranger who 2 turns in a row, I got surrounded on his first turn by 4 guys. I rolled a 5, and I was like, well, he's gonna get a 6 and win. He rolled a 5. Well, rangers are fight 4, and Gundabad Warriors only fight 3, so I won, and then I struck and actually got a kill. Crazy as that sounds, needing 6s. And then the next turn, I was outnumbered again. Rolled a clutch 6. No kill this time, but just holding back 5 or 6 guys for a turn is super clutch there for that ranger. And I believe on the 3rd turn he finally died. But his compadre or compatriot in arms, there you go, that works too. His compatriot in arms and the warrior actually survived that 3rd turn and took yet another turn before he died, surrounded that time completely. And it's just crazy that because those guys did that, I was able to hold a choke point, which kept him from getting onto that board quarter, which Huron was able to secure. So, yep, that was round 1. Went into round 2. We were playing capture and control. I was playing Richard. Another really cool guy who was laid back. Richard had an interesting army. He had the Witch King and Smaug. So, yeah. The Witch King was kitted up to 100 points. I think he was 310-3 with the Morgul Crown. And then Smaug. Need I say more when it comes to that? Luckily for me, it was a scenario where it was an objective scenario. And it was capture and control. So we were playing on an Amon Sul board. So he deployed Smaug on top of Amon Sul. And I was like, okay, well, great. I deployed Aragorn's warband beneath him because he was sitting atop Amon Sul. And the Witch King actually deployed underneath as well. So I deployed Aragorn's warband with my bowmen and stuff like that, my warriors up underneath. And then I deployed Huron's warband and Durnhelm and Théoden out on the board. And the Amon Sul piece was very large. It took up a good chunk of the board. It was almost 24 inches wide, and it was probably about 22 inches wide, and I'd say about 22 inches long. It took up a good chunk of the board. However, they did a good job, again, by having the majority of the rest of the board. There was line of sight blockers and movement deterrents, but they weren't large pieces. They had some very large scale boulders that would have to be, you couldn't see through them at all, even if you were a cavalry model or some of the larger monster models, so you'd have to go around them. A couple hills here and there, a tree here and there. So enough terrain breakup where line of sight was definitely going to need to be established, but also nothing where it was an overly Amon Sul took up a lot. It took up almost a quarter of the board, and it was positioned on the central line. But outside of that, there was a lot of maneuverability. So again, I tip my hat. I like boards like that. You can have a large piece on a board like that, but the rest of the board therefore needs to be somewhat open in order for larger models like chariots or Mumox or the Belrog or stuff like that to be able to move around freely. So I definitely like the way that board was set up. Again, I tip my hat to David and Evan for setting up another great and brilliant board, in my opinion. Um, Moving on, so Smaug was up on top of Amansul, and then I was able to basically in turn one jump on four of the objectives, three on the midline and my back one, and I sent a few guys after the one on the far side, Richard's side of the board. Um, Aragorn got transfixed, failed, rolled three threes, or three twos. Oh, excuse me, pardon. He rolled three twos to resist needing a six was thrown by Smaug to transfix him. Unfortunately, I rolled three twos. Already burnt my free heroic, and even if, or sorry, free might, and even if I hadn't, I don't think I would have burned all three of his base might plus the freebie to resist it. It just didn't seem worth it to me. Um, that wasn't a thing, like I said, because I'd already spent my free point of might, so the best I could do was make it a 5, and it was a 6 to cast. So there's no resisting, but it was good. I was trying to go ahead and gank the Witch King. I had some warriors in there. I think they might have gotten a wound, maybe not. I don't remember. But then next turn, I was able to charge the Witch King again, and this time I killed him. Aragorn did what Aragorn needed to do, which was to he tried to transfix me again, but he did not cast transfix successfully. I think he threw like a 1, which was pretty bad. He also tried breathing fire on me, and I think he missed on turn 1 as well, which is crazy because it's only like a 2 up and Smaug hadn't moved. I shot shots at him. I mean, why not? I had a few rangers that popped some shots. I did get some hits and did get a couple 6s, but strength 2 bows on defense 9. It's 6s by 5s, I believe, or 6s by 6s. So I never got a wound in shooting, which didn't surprise me at all. So after I killed the Witch King, I at that point claimed 5 objectives because by turn 2 I was on the back objective. And he started breathing fire, and it was successful. Scorched like almost all of Aragorn's warband in one turn just because they were so close together. After that, I just started kind of spreading out, putting guys around like in a triangle, just trying to eat up space on the board so that Smaug couldn't fly over and drop down and just like annihilate 2 or 3 guys. And then at the same time, I was keeping them at least 3 inches away from each other so that they couldn't be breathe fire to death. So like the first couple brief fires, I don't want to say it got close. It almost put me at breaking already, which was good. That's kind of what I want. In this game, I wanted to fight and die quickly because doing that would allow me to win the game. And that was basically my goal, was grab the objectives, then just try and puppy guard them by putting guys around them, but far enough apart where they can't be, hit with the breathe fire spillover, but prevent Smaug from coming and landing on top of me. He was able to land on top of the center objective, just because I was trying to actually avoid that central area because I saw Smaug could probably do that. He did go down there. And I charged in with Aragorn and Théoden and some Royal Guard. Struck up, struck higher, dealt some wounds. I think I dealt like 4 wounds. Next turn, was able to win the roll-off for movement. Charged in. Actually, no, I didn't. He just chose not to move. Charged Aragorn in, charged Dernhelm. What's his name? Théoden and some more Royal Guard. So Huron, I'd actually run to the back corner. My whole purpose being so that if Aragorn got killed in a breathe fire or whatever, for whatever reason, I could deny VPs, which is actually what ended up happening. Aragorn ended up getting taken off his horse due to breathe fire, and then got breathe fire to death because even though I prevented the wounds 3 turns in a row when I ran out of fate, 1 successful breathe fire wound is an insta kill. So Aragorn did die, and that meant I literally went and hid Huron, and I actually think I took him off my horse and hid him behind a rock so he couldn't be seen. Went prone and all that. Maybe I don't remember. I know I hit him. And Richard's like, "You're hiding here now, aren't you?" I was like, "Oh yeah, absolutely." I was like, "I'm not getting anywhere near that dragon." He's like, "Don't blame you." Uh, so after 2 turns of doing a few wounds, I think I dealt 8 wounds, as crazy as that is. He went and flew Smaug back up on top of Amasul, and at that point, I only had like 3 or 4 rangers left, so I was just trying to get some more wounds, and he was popping breathe fires on me, and it ended up being where by the time he realized that, oh, that last breathe fire broke you because I killed 2. I was like, yep, I'm broken now. We're gonna see if the game ends. We rolled and the game ended, and it ended up being good for me. I was able to get 8 objectives, um, and I wounded Smaug. I'm sorry, 4 objectives, and I wounded Smaug. I never was able to get the middle objective back. I don't remember why, but I couldn't get the middle objective. Maybe because why did I not get the middle objective back? I don't remember. I didn't get it. Or maybe he. That's it. I did get the middle, but he flew Smaug and ended up landing on the back objective, and that was the turn where he killed 2 guys, and that broke me. On top of breathing fire, that broke me. And once you break, you start rolling to see if people flee. And so, like the turn after I broke, I lost a couple guys to courage checks. Mostly the Warriors of Minas Tirith. The bodyguard guys stuck around. So did Théoden, Huron, and Huron was a big one. I needed him to stay. He did, thank God. And Durnhelm all passed their courage checks. But he grabbed the back objective, so that was what caused, and in doing so, killed 2 guys, and that's what caused the game to end. We rolled, and it was a 1, so the game ended. So I had 4 objectives, which gave me 8 points. I wounded Smaug, which gave me 9. He had 4 points, 2 for getting the back objective, and then 2 for breaking and being unbroken. The only way to possibly break him was to kill Smaug, and that was not going to happen, because 2-model army, you're basically unbreakable. The only way to break you is to kill you completely, is to table you. And I had no shot, in my opinion, of even wounding Smaug, so getting 8 was lucky. And then, let's see, what else? Yeah, so it was a 9-4 victory, which gave me my second victory of the day in a major. So I was at 7 tournament points total at that point, along with 15 victory points. So pretty good standing right there. I knew I was going to be top table going into round 3. I don't know if I was the top table, but I was playing on one of the top tables. I think there were 3 undefeated and somebody with a tie and a win at that point. Which was who I ended up facing was the guy with a tie and a win, and that was Evan. Evan from the Greenfield area. So Evan didn't know if he was supposed to be TOing, but due to odd number, he ended up getting to play, and David did just strictly TOing. I guess they rolled off for that or something, they said. So it's always a good thing if you're a TO to have a backup, an odd man out in case you have an odd number or whatever, so that everybody gets a chance to play who comes, and not only play but play 3 games, because you hate to have someone come from, like I drove 2 hours down there to play. It would have really sucked if I was the guy who only ended up getting to play 2 games because I had to buy. So that's a little tidbit, outside of playing, but just for TOing ideas. And I think I'm going to make a video at some point. I know, side point here. I'm sorry. I'm going to make a video talking about how to run an event, because I've done a dozen of them now, and I think they've all been very successful. So anyway, it was me and Evan. The last scenario was Assassination. He was playing Iron Hills with Dane the Chariot, and then just dwarfs, 2 goat riders, and a few crossbows. So Assassination kind of sucks for that against that army, because the only target I can choose to assassinate is the Chariot. Not too bad, I guess. I guess it's better than trying to kill like a Balrog, but still not an easy thing to do, seeing as Aragorn cannot be my assassin. Théoden is not really a combat hero. Huron is good because strength 4 with burly two-handed, hand and a half, two-handed weapon there. So he's getting the +1 to wound, but only 2 attacks makes it really hard to do that, you're going to need like 3 turns of combat for him to kill the chariot. And not only that, but 3 successful wounds as well. And then Durnhelm, who at strength 3 is wounding the defense 8 chariot with 6s by 4s. So not a very pretty prospect at all when it comes to having to figure out who to use as an assassin. So I did end up actually going ahead and picking Durnhelm. My thought process being she has 3 attacks, so she's got more capability of dealing wounds. So if I can get her in there with some guys, I can make it happen. Not only that, but she has heroic strength and heroic strike. So if I can combo her up with another striking hero to automatically win with the fight value, because the chariot can't strike, and then heroic strength up, even if I just strength up to 4, then I'm wounding by 6s, that gives me a much better shot of doing something. Alright, so into the game we deploy, and Evan sets himself up in a nice kind of L-shaped formation with the small leg of the L being the chariot. And then his warriors just kind of move across. So he's got a nice little L. He's built up perfectly to surround and kill me. And model count-wise, we're pretty much the same. The difference being that he has a huge chariot being the equivalent of my Huron, Durnhelm, and Théoden when it comes to points, you know. His Dane matches up cheaper than my Aragorn, but pretty close to it. And then Goat Riders are more expensive than Royal Guard, so, you know, 2 of them is, you know, basically 3 Royal Guard. Little less than 3 Royal Guard. But his warriors are much more expensive compared to my 8 and 9 point troops. So I will say this, my troops didn't do much of anything when it came to the Ministerial side. They were going to have a hard time punching through. Strength 3 on Defense 8 shield wall, even Strength 3 against Defense 7 is not going to do a lot. I had very few kills with the Ministerial, and unfortunately that kind of bit me in the ass. But the Royal Guard did a lot of work for me. When they weren't dismounted, because I had 3 of them dismounted and shooting by his bolt thrower on the chariot and by his archers, his crossbows, because I think he had 5 crossbows. So my guys that did not get dismounted, when they charged in against a warrior, they were usually killing. If they were fighting one warrior, and there were a couple times where they were fighting a warrior with spear support, if they weren't killing, they were winning and knocking prone, which makes it much harder for dwarfs to do what dwarfs want, which is to move together and stay in a unit. Because when you knock them prone and they stand up, they're only moving 2.5 inches. So the Royal Guard were definitely, in my opinion, close to being the man of the match in this fight. So I actually did something a little crazy and threw Aragorn into the fray early on. I threw him in against a warrior. There's a lot of difficult terrain. He kind of had it where he built this L like I talked about, but then had the chariot sitting in the middle of 2 difficult terrain areas, being woodland terrain. And unfortunately for me, my Rohan was near one side of that woodland terrain. But I was able to get Aragorn and a Royal Guard in against a single warrior, heroic combat off of that, go in and get a kill against a Goat Rider with Aragorn, and then get another kill with the other Royal Guard. Then the next turn, I sent Aragorn against the chariot. I was able to move first. I won. His chariot tried to master battle my heroic movement. He lost it. He didn't get it. So I moved. I sent Aragorn into the chariot. I sent a bunch of guys. Just basically, I was tying his guys up with my warriors on the top side of the L. And then my heroes were starting to get engaged at the bottom side of the L where the chariot and Aragorn was at. Did some more, it was light combat at that point. Aragorn ended up successfully delivering 2 wounds to the chariot. And then the next turn came, and I lost priority again. and I did my roll. I did my free heroic movement with Aragorn's free point of might. He called the he called one with the chariot. Master Battle. I believe he succeeded this one. I don't remember for sure. He might have failed it, and he used his. I just know that by this point he was almost out of might with the chariot. So he won the movement with the chariot. He won the movement roll off. Rolled the chariot into Aragorn. I'm like, well, shit. Only did one wound to Aragorn and my horse. And I'm like, okay, cool. I can Horse Lord, and I can potentially save both. So I opted to do Horse Lord for my fate first. My thought process being I can tank a wound with Aragorn, keep my horse alive, keeps my mobility and my hitting power up. Well, I proceeded to roll absolute dog shit with all of my fate. First fate, 1. Second fate, 2. Third fate, 1. So Aragorn got thrown off his horse, and just, for shits and giggles on top of that, he rolled a 1 for thrown rider. So the strength 3 didn't do anything, but he was prone, and I took a hit. I was like, well, this freaking blows. Absolutely worst set of rolls I've ever seen in my life when it came to that. But that's usually pretty common with me when it comes to big heroes. So I can't say too much. Although Aragorn did do pretty good for me this event. He did kill things. I wouldn't say he ever made up his points, but he definitely did what he needed to do when I needed him to do it. So I get Huron, Durnhelm, and Théoden all into combat, all near the chariot, and do a slew, and I'm talking a slew of heroics. Aragorn, I didn't call anything with. I did heroic combat with Huron. I did heroic combat with Durnhelm, and I'm sorry, not Durnhelm, Théoden, and I did heroic combat or heroic strength with Durnhelm. So he master battled the heroic combat with the chariot, which is actually something we had to look up, because from what I know, and if anybody knows this, please give me a specific page number, because we couldn't find it, so I had to cede to the TO. In my experience, the chariot could not call a heroic combat because the driver is the one who has the ability to call it, and because the driver is not in combat, you can't use heroic combats. You can do heroic movements because he does drive the chariot, but from everything that I knew, the chariot could not benefit from heroic combat due to the fact that it's kind of like the Moonmock, because the Moonmock, not the war leader one, but the regular Moonmock, the driver is not in combat, so therefore the Moonmock cannot benefit from heroic combat because it's the Moonmock that's in combat. And I thought it was the same thing for the chariot. Now, what they did show me was that the chariot picks up the hero keyword. So their argument was, well, since the chariot has the hero keyword, then they can benefit from a heroic combat, which I can understand, but I thought there was an FAQ that said that chariots could not benefit from heroic combats. Now, I might be wrong, because I did have my FAQs with me, and I looked through the one for the Hobbit, and I did not find anything in there that specifically said that. So I played it the way the TO said it could be played, because that's their event. I have to cede to their TOing. And so the chariot got to do a heroic combat, and he won the he was successful as master of battle, so he got to do one. So that actually changed a lot of what I was trying to do, because Huron was in a combat with Aragorn, which meant that so he had charged into Aragorn with the chariot, and then charged Aragorn with a goat rider. I had charged, and I think he also had a foot model against Aragorn as well. Yeah, he did. So I had charged the foot model with Théoden, and then I had charged the goat rider with Huron. My thought process being, before it was completely ruined by this, the chariot can call a heroic combat, was that a heroic combat with Théoden against one warrior has a very good chance of killing because I have the fight value and I can burn some might if needed to get a 6. And then a heroic combat with Hurin assisting Aragorn makes Aragorn stand up, and then I can throw Hurin into the chariot. Well, since he did the whole thing, like I said, that kind of screwed me. I was like, okay, whatever. So Théoden 1 was able to charge into the chariot. I did then it was the chariot versus Théoden in Durnhelm. So I had 5 attacks to his 5 attacks because he charged. I don't remember how I won the combat. I can't remember if maybe I had a strike in there as well or something. No, that's what it was. I did Théoden and Hurin into a warrior. Combated off of that, struck with Théoden. So Théoden was a higher fight value. Rolled Théoden into the chariot. Rolled Hurin into the goat rider with Aragorn. That's what I did. Okay, so that and originally I wasn't even going to roll Hurin into the goat rider. I was going to roll Hurin into the chariot because Aragorn on his own I thought could take one goat rider because there's 3 dice to 2 dice at that point, and I had might. But I ended up not being able. I ended up going ahead and rolling the Hurin into the goat rider. So it was basically, since it was his priority, he split Aragorn against the goat rider, and that's why I went ahead and just used Hurin to support him. All right. So all that being said, it was the chariot versus my higher fight value, Théoden and Durnhelm. I rolled the 6. So I won the fight, struck with Théoden, who dealt a wound, which was great because now the chariot's down to 2. My heroic strength, I rolled a 6. So I went up D3 strength, which was 3, which made me strength 6 against the defense 8 chariot. And then Durnhelm struck 2 wounds and killed the chariot. And Durnhelm was my assassin. And with that, I scored 7 VPs. So with that, the score stood at 7-1. However, and this is where I started making my mistakes, I forgot he had wounded Aragorn. Now, why is that critical? Because this isn't Fog of War. This is Assassination. Now, Fog of War is a similar scenario where you choose an enemy's hero to kill, but you also choose one of your own heroes to defend. There is no victory points for killing or wounding the enemy leader. Assassination, however, does have victory points for killing or wounding the leader. So when I killed the chariot with my assassin, I scored 7 VPs and instantly was thinking in my head, holy shit, I have a 7-0 score right now if this game ends right this second. Which, unfortunately for me, it did not. Now, that being said, 7-1, it's still a major victory because I'm still at that 5 or above point margin. But I got sloppy. I took my foot off the gas. I didn't concentrate like I needed to. I was sitting there reveling in the moral victory that, holy shit, I just killed this chariot. Not only did I kill it, but I killed it with my assassin, which assassination is a great scenario. I really love it. However, I have had little success with actually achieving the major part of the victory points, which is what I just did, and that which is killing your target with your assassin. So not only is this the first time I think I've ever achieved killing the target with my assassin, but I also killed the freaking Iron Hills chariot. Like, how often does that happen? There's probably someone sitting here thinking, yeah, I do it all the damn time. What the hell is your problem? Well, I mean, it's never happened for me before. Yeah, I've gotten close. I've definitely done a lot of wounds, and I've killed like models out of it, but directly killing the chariot, no. Because usually I try to strike through with that 50-50 in the way, and then they're defense 6 warriors. So usually when I'm fighting a chariot, it's usually with my heroes, which are wounding the warriors on 5s, which is a hell of a lot better than trying to ruin the chariot on 6s with strength 4 heroes. And having to burn a lot of might to do it because it has 5 wounds. So I kind of got sloppy after that. Neither of us was broken. I wasn't going to get anywhere near Dane with my heroes because while I still had a lot of might, I just knew that Dane could easily eat through most of my heroes, or he could pull guys off. And he had a lot of models around Dane. So I was just trying to kind of, push his models and force him in collapse. So I ended up breaking through. With the loss of the chariot, he had basically lost the L, and it was basically a lowercase L or an I, if you want to put it that way. And I was just pushing that and making it smaller and smaller. Now, where I screwed up was I sent Théoden and Huron around a flank, thinking that they could go and kill a couple guys in a turn, and then the next turn I'd be able to roll all my Royal Guard in Durnhelm and... actually, I think I sent Durnhelm down south to go kill like one guy, but at least, or roll Aragorn in there and just continue to pound on him. Well, unfortunately for me, in that turn, I completely botched all my combats with almost everybody except for Aragorn. And that really hurt me because he dealt a number of losses. I think it was one of those ones where like I was losing I was losing 2 out of 3 combats, and in those 2 out of 3 combats, I was losing a minimum of a guy. And then the ones I won, I wasn't wounding. And that's where it comes to that whole defense 7, defense 8 with shield wall. The Warriors of Minas Tirith and the Rangers of Minas Tirith just cannot punch through that. I think I got 1 or 2 lucky kills here or there throughout the game with them, but for the most part, when it came to killing, it was my heroes or my strength 4 Royal Guard on the charge, knocking down individual models, trapping them, and then getting 4 dice to roll a 6. And even then, it wasn't like I was always doing it. It was like every other Royal Guard was getting that kill. So unfortunately for me, he tried to make a play that turn, and I realized it, but was able to block him by winning a heroic movement and just giving Dane one guy to fight. To tie him up. But I realized he had a straight shot at Huron and Théoden on the back line if he moved his guys out of the way. Now, normally I would see this, but since I was just kind of sitting there in my high, giddy self going, hee, I killed the chariot, I totally missed it. So on the following turn, he won the roll-off for movement, surrounded Théoden, and completely ganked him. Now, to be fair, I did win the roll-off for the higher fight value. So all I needed was a 6. I rolled a 5 high on both dice, and I had no might left. So that's where it stood, and he got a 6 because he rolled Dane and I think like 2 other guys in there. Either way, long story short, he ganked Théoden. Oh, Théoden's the guy he was going for. So it was 7-5 in my mind still at that point. Totally, again, having forgotten that he wounded Aragorn, which would have made it 7-6. Which I remembered the following turn and went, 7-6. Of course, this is also the turn that I realized, oh, shit, I'm about to break. And I broke. He needed to kill like 3 guys to break me. Easily did it. I needed to kill 3 guys to break him. Failed to do so. Broke me, so we would begin to roll to see if the game ended at the end of the next turn. Well, we went and moved and gotten started with combats, and I had been told they had been saying that the time was running out for the round. However, I had thought I'd have enough time to at least get a couple combats in, which we did, but I foolishly didn't call any heroics, even though I had points of might left with all of my heroes. I believe, or at least Aragorn and Huron, or Aragorn and Durnhelm, because Aragorn still had his freebie. And that would have given me the chance to at least have 1 combat, even if Dane Master battled it successfully, because we had 3 combats before they diced us down, and I didn't do it. And him choosing the combats meant he chose all the combats that he could do where he had the advantage, or at least knew he most likely wasn't going to die. Me not realizing exactly how close we were to finishing, we were like 1 combat away from getting to Aragorn, which would have been an easy 1-person kill, because there's Aragorn and 2 Royal Guard who had charged in. Very unlikely that I failed there, but even if I had rolled terribly, I still had I think I had at least 1, maybe 2 points of might left with Aragorn. So, like I said, it was probably going to be that one kill that I needed. Unfortunately, they diced us down, and since they did that, I was broken. He had broke me and was unbroken, so he scored 2 victory points, which gave him an 8-7 victory. 5 for killing Théoden, 1 for wounding Aragorn, and 2 for breaking and being unbroken. And I was like, son of a bitch. My own stupidity. I took my foot off the gas. I got caught up in the fact that I had killed the chariot, and that made me stupid. Because I made another semi-foolish play, sending Durnhelm down to kill one warrior that was like way away from the action. If I had not done that and just kept Durnhelm over with the rest of the people, I could have maybe gotten 2 or 3 kills as opposed to taking 2 turns, because it took 2 turns to kill him. 1 turn to charge and kill, then another turn to move back into position, and then the turn after that to finally get Durnhelm into combat. So if I had just not even bothered with that one little warrior, sent a royal guard or just let him take the time that was required to move to get to me, because it would have taken him 2 turns to move to get to me, and then dealt with it. But I got stupid. I got sloppy. So moral of the story, guys, when you're sitting on top table and you score a victory, a moral victory, in killing a chariot, don't get caught up in the killing of the chariot, because you end up losing the actual game. But it was a great game. It was really fun. Evan and I have played before. I think it was probably the most fun I've had in a game in well over a year and a half. So we were both keeping each other honest and, calling each other out just for certain things. Like, are you sure that's supposed to be the way that it is? Yeah, it's right here. Okay, you're right. Just wanted to double check. But not in an asshole-ish way, which is usually what happens. But in a friendly, competitive way. So it was a very competitive but super friendly game. And at the same time, it had a lot of riding on it, a lot of stake riding on it, because, again, it was one of the top tables. So Evan ended up winning that, which gave him 2 wins and a draw and put me at 2 wins and a loss. So Evan got second. So awesome, Evan. I ended up being able to take home third, which is better than last place. So, or better than fourth, which is like the first loser, I guess, when it comes to podium. But I enjoyed it. I had a fun time. I'm glad I was able to podium. I was glad I got to play 3 guys, all of who were good sports and good matchups and just good fun games. That's really what you're looking for when you go to an event. It's just to have good fun games all the way around. You don't leave with any sort of sour taste in your mouth at all. And I think that's, again, kudos. The last board, talking terrain, since I talked about the other 2, it was a wee bit heavy for the difficult terrain, which is something that Evan even admitted to. They think they had like 1 or 2 pieces of heavy of terrain that was made it just a little too heavy. But overall, not a bad board. I actually enjoyed it. I liked the woodlands to it. That definitely kind of got me here or there when it came to moving through them with my mounted heroes and mounted models, being, quarter movement for them. Overall, great event. Hell of a good time. Glad I went. Looking forward to the next one. Looking forward to a number of these guys coming up here in just over a month on the 4th of March when I do my 1,000-point team event. Evan and David will be a team, and then there's another team coming from there, Sam and Preston, and then another person, Chris, who's teaming up with somebody from out of that area. So they're bringing 5 guys up to my event, which is really awesome. But this is a really long review. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to it. Hope you guys gleaned some, tactical information, or just enjoyed hearing about the games. Listening to a battle report isn't as fun as watching one, but it can be something to put on in the background while you're doing some painting and hobbying. So hopefully it wasn't too big of a drag. Thank you all for subscribing. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And I will see you next time.